Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes.
Hey guys, Amber here with the Meeple family, and today I'm going to walk you through one of my new favorite games called Wormholes. Wormholes is a pick up and deliver space-themed game that plays 1 to 5 players. It takes about 45 minutes to play, and the recommended age is 10 plus. So let's go ahead and break down how to set up Wormholes, and at the end of the video, I'll take a couple turns so you can see how the game flows. For our example today, I'm going to set up a 2-player game. So I've gone ahead and put out all the space boards needed for the 2-player game setup. But let's talk about these space boards. So there's actually 2 additional space boards that come with the game that are for a 4-player count. So since we're setting up a 2-player game, I'm going to go ahead and return these to the box. The other thing I want to talk about regarding the space boards is that they are double-sided, which is going to offer you some versatility when playing. For your first game, it's recommended that you have the side that has this little circle icon face up. For later, more advanced games, you can use the sides that have the X like this. So for this game, we are going to do circle side up. And when you go ahead and set up your spaceboard, you're first going to want to find the space station, which is this one right here. Using that space station, you can go ahead and use the blueprint that is printed in the rules. There is a 1 to 3 player option and of course a 4 to 5 player option using those 2 boards that we eliminated for our 2-player setup. Couple things to keep in mind when you're setting up these spaceboards. We need planets to be at least 2 spaces apart. So if at any time when you're laying out these boards, you notice that your planets are too close, you can simply rotate the board in order to make sure planets, again, are at least 2 spaces apart. Now on this beginner side that we're playing on, there are 2 special spaces I want to draw your attention to. The first one is called the photon cannon. And basically the way this works is if your spaceship lands here, as a free action, you can launch yourself as many spaces as you choose in a straight line of adjacent hexes. So this could potentially launch me all the way across the galaxy. Another place is right here by our space station, and this is called an orbit. An orbit allows players to move from any space in the orbit to another space in the orbit for only 1 energy. So for instance, if my ship is here and I'd like to get over on this other side, I can simply pay my 1 energy and move to any of these spaces in the orbit. And lastly, on this beginner side is our nebula. A player in this space can move to any adjacent space, either the nebula or regular space, without spending any of their energy. So though it does cost to move into the nebula, once you're in here, you have some options and some possible free movements. Now on the more complex side of the board, you will find several other icons and you'll be able to find all of those map features and there are special descriptions on the back of your player aid. Once you've completely put together your spaceboard, we can then move on to the exploration stack. The exploration stack is made up of 3 sections. So let's start with the bottommost section. On the bottom is basically going to be your 3 last turn countdown trackers. So you're going to put 1, 2, and 3 as the base of our exploration stack. On top of that, you are going to put the planets connected token. This is going to be revealed once all planets have a wormhole next to them. And on top of the planets connected token, you are going to put the numbered exploration tokens, which for our 2-player game, we'll only be using 8 of them. The game actually comes with 10, but those are used for higher player counts. So I have already removed the 9 and 10, and you're just going to look at the numbers here and put them in numerical order from 1 to 8 and set that stack right on top of your planet's connected token. And then go ahead and place the stack just so players are able to reach it. Players are going to access these tokens from top to bottom as they put wormholes next to the different planets. Only the player to first put their wormhole next to a planet will get that reward. And you will find there are different victory points on these tokens, so they can become very valuable at endgame scoring. In addition to setting out our exploration stack, go ahead and also place the 1 and 5 point tokens within players' reach. Now it's time to set up our 2-player game. Each player will select a spaceship in their player color. Each player will also get 3 energy tokens face up. You'll also need a pickup token in your player color. Each player can also grab a reference card so they can easily identify icons on the map and their turn actions. Most importantly, players are going to need their stack of wormholes. Let's take a look at these wormhole tokens. You can see that they're double-sided. The black side indicates that it's not active, whereas the colored side of the player color indicates that it is an active wormhole. Go ahead and create a stack of your wormhole tokens from 1 to 5, with the lowest number, 1, being at the top of the stack, and be sure that they are flipped to the black side or the inactive side. Go ahead and determine who's going to go first and give them the first player token. Now it's time to take a look at our passenger cards. Depending on how many people are playing, go ahead and remove the 4+ player cards from the deck, which I've done since we're setting up a 2-player game. Depending on player count will depend on how many passenger cards you get for the start of the game. The first player will get 1 passenger card, where the second player will receive 2. You can refer to the rulebook to see the other player counts. Now, players keep these passenger cards in their hand. They can look at them as many times as they would like, but they should keep them secret from their opponents. With passenger cards dealt out, we're ready to start the game. Now, the first turn is a little different because we're going to need to place one of our wormhole tokens adjacent to the space station. I guess you can think of it as like our home base. So let's go ahead and look at this passenger card that the red player has received. So that planet is all the way over here. So I think I'm going to place their wormhole closer to that side of the board. And I'm just going to leave this face up for now so we can refer back to it. So like I said, the first turn is a little different because you're going to place your first wormhole, which should be a number 1, on the inactive side adjacent to the space station, and put your spaceship on top of it. Now, at this point, your turn would officially begin. Each turn, a player has 3 energy to use, and this is going to help them move their spaceship. Now, you don't have to use all of your energy, but you can't save it or roll it over to your next turn. The other token we have here is a passenger pickup token, and this can also be played once per turn. So we do have a couple items that are restricted on our turns, but we have several free options that we can do on our turn as well, and we're going to go over those in more detail in just a moment. Let's first talk about moving our spaceship. On your turn, you can spend 1 energy to move your spaceship to any adjacent space. Now, there's a couple spaces on the board that ships cannot move through, and these are depicted with black backgrounds. So some of these spaces you can see have meteors or planets within them. Ships are allowed to move into the same space as their opponent's ships. Just keep in mind, energy is only spent when moving between adjacent spaces, not wormholes, which we haven't gotten into yet, but those are free actions. So now that we understand how we use energy to move, let's talk about some of the additional free options we have on our turn. So one of the free actions we have an option of doing on our turn is placing a wormhole. And when you place a wormhole, you're always going to want to take the topmost token from your wormhole stack. Depending on where your spaceship is, you can place your wormhole where your spaceship is or in a space adjacent to your spaceship. A couple things to keep in mind with this. I cannot place multiple wormholes adjacent to the same planet in my player color. So I couldn't place this 2 here because I already have a red wormhole across from this planet. But the green player, if they would like to, would be able to place their wormhole adjacent to this planet. These same rules apply to the space station as well. When both wormhole tokens in a pair have been placed, we can flip them over to their active side. And this wormhole is now active and available for use. So even though this is a free action, I still would need to spend 1 energy to move onto the wormhole. And then at that point, I could fly to the space station for free. So as we just saw, in addition to placing a wormhole, which is a free action, I can also warp through wormholes as a free action. Now let's break down warping through wormholes because there are a few restrictions and some bonuses if opponents use your wormholes. Now, a player may warp through wormholes any number of times on their turn, but they must perform another action or free movement between each warp. So for instance, I can't just go back and forth here without doing something in between, whether that is placing another wormhole or maybe picking up some passengers. Now, what if a situation arises where an opponent uses your wormhole? Well, they're able to do that, but you are going to gain 1 point token every time an opponent uses your wormhole. So it won't actually cost your opponent anything, but they are giving you points from the general supply. Now, we've talked about warping through a wormhole. We've also talked about placing wormholes. Let's talk about dropping off a passenger. So we can see the red player here has started with this passenger card. Now, in order to drop off a passenger, my ship needs to be adjacent to this planet. As soon as I've reached my destination, I can reveal my passenger cards to the other players just to verify that I'm at the right planet, and then this is going to go face down in my player area. At the end of the game, all these passenger cards that I have delivered are going to be worth 2 victory points each. Now, there is a special Galactic Tour bonus to keep in mind when you are choosing what passengers to drop off. At the end of the game, each player earns 3 points for every different planet beyond the first 5 on their dropped off passenger cards. Let's look at this as an example of how the Galactic Tour bonus works. A player who delivered to 7 different planets would score 6 points for the Galactic Tour bonus at the end of the game. So now that we've talked about how to drop off passengers, which you need to be adjacent to the planet that matches the passenger card, let's talk about how we can pick up passengers. Now, there's 2 different ways to pick up passengers, but before I get into that, I do want to mention one thing. Regardless of which way you choose to pick up passengers, you always have the option to discard passenger cards. Now, just keep in mind that this passenger pickup can only be done once per turn. And in order to initiate this pickup, you do need to have your spaceship either adjacent to the space station or to a planet. Now, prior to picking up passengers, you have the option to discard passenger cards, as I said earlier. Now, discarding is a little bit unique in this game. So let's say that I wanted to discard this planet here. In order to do so, it gets played in what is called the space station docks. And throughout the game, this space station dock will continue to grow with different planet types. As you discard planets to the space station dock, go ahead and put them with their like planets. So let's first look at how we pick up passengers from the space station. As normal, before picking up passengers, we can determine if we'd like to discard any of our passengers. If for some reason I wanted to discard these, I would just put them in their matching pile over at the space station dock. There is a hand limit of 4. So when you are picking up passengers from the space station, you are actually going to use the space station dock to gather your passengers. So you'll be able to actually assess these face-up passenger cards and select up to 2 different planets until you've met your 4-card hand limit. After selecting your passenger cards, you're going to want to flip your pickup token face down to its inactive side, just to show you've already picked up passengers for this particular turn. Now let's see how we pick up passengers when we're adjacent to a planet. As normal, I can see if I would like to discard any of the planet cards that I have in hand. Remember, you're always going to discard face up to the space station dock. I'll simply draw from the passenger deck until I have 4 cards. Now, if you draw a passenger card that matches the planet that your spaceship is adjacent to, you're going to need to discard that card into the space station dock and draw a new card to replace it. Once you have your hand of 4 cards, be sure to put your token face down to show that you have picked up passengers for this turn. Now, a player may end their turn at any point, but will usually do so after they've used their energy and picked up passengers. When ending your turn, you can go ahead and refresh your 3 energy and your pickup token, and play will continue to the next player. Now, let's talk about how the game ends. As players are putting wormholes out on the board, when they are the first player to put a wormhole adjacent to a planet, they're going to receive one of the exploration tokens. Once the last exploration token has been taken, it will reveal the planet's connected token. The first player will discard the top token in the exploration stack at the start of each of their turns. This will count down the last 3 turns within the game. When the stack is empty, the game is over. Players will count up their points. You earn points for exploration tokens, points from wormhole uses, dropped off passenger cards, and if you're lucky, the Galactic Tour bonus, which remember is 3 points per different planet delivered to beyond 5. And that's a quick run through of Wormhole. Now, I think this game makes a lot more sense if I walk you through a couple turns. So let's go ahead and start with the red player. So they have this passenger card, which it looks like is right here. So with that in mind, I am going to put their first wormhole token adjacent to the Space Center, which is what we have to do to start the game, with my ship on it. Now, I am going to go ahead in that direction by using some of my energy to move over there. and 3. So at this point, I'm able to place a wormhole, and I am going to place that right here, getting me my first exploration token because I am the first wormhole adjacent to this particular planet. I'm also going to activate this wormhole because I've got both number 1s out here, so that is now an active wormhole. Now, unfortunately, I'm not adjacent to the planet, so I can't do my pickup action, but I should be able to for my next turn. So I am going to go ahead and refresh and turn this face down, and we are going to move over to the green player. So the green player has 2 passenger cards because they went second. Oh, and they've got a great option right here and right here. So I think I am going to put their first wormhole token right there, put the spaceship on. Okay, and I am going to start with my 3 moves. So I'm going to take my first move here, and I'm actually going to put my first wormhole here, getting me my exploration token, and of course, activating this wormhole. Now I still have 2 energy to spend, but before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and drop off one of my passengers because it matches and I'm adjacent to it. So that is 1 done. Now I'm also gonna take another action here and I'm gonna pick up passengers. Now I do have the option to discard, but I'm gonna hang on to this one because it's a pretty straight shot to that planet. So I have my new passenger cards, and the 1 is here, and my other 2 are here, which my teammate has a wormhole set up to, so I may be able to utilize that. Now I still have 2 energy, and I think what I'm gonna do is actually head back to this wormhole, and then I have to spend another energy, and I'd like to get on my teammate's wormhole, and I can take this wormhole as a free action to deliver 2 more passengers. Now, because I took my opponent's wormhole, they are going to get 1 point for the end of the game. And I think while I'm over on this side of the board, I'm actually gonna go ahead and drop one of my own wormholes. And now I am gonna use their wormhole to get back, and that is going to be another point for my teammate. And I think I am now gonna move over to the red player. So we will refresh the green here. And let's see what the red player is going to do. So I think they are going to use an energy to get on their wormhole and cash in their passenger card. And while they're adjacent to the planet, we are going to go ahead and pick up 4 new passengers. Now we always have to make sure we don't draw any of the passengers that we are adjacent to, and I did. So this is actually going to go in the space station dock here, and I will get 1 new card to replenish that with. Well, looking at what I have for options, I am going to go ahead and warp back to this wormhole. And I think I am going to pay 1 to warp to the side here. And this is an orbit space, and you can read more about this in the rules, but you are able to pay 1 energy to orbit around to any of the spaces that it is connected with. And I am going to pay 1 more energy to head out this way. I am going to place a wormhole here. Well, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of how this game works. Play would continue just like this, again, until all of these planets have a wormhole placed up to them, and of course we exhaust our exploration tokens. Our family has really enjoyed playing this game, and it has a great solo mode that I am going to be showcasing on the channel pretty soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you found this tutorial helpful to help you decide if Wormholes is a good fit for your gaming table.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes.